Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Cindy Biggs, past president of the League of Women Voters of Wayne County and moderator for this community meeting on housing and homelessness in Wayne County. We are happy to have you here and have you join us this evening. So I'm going to start by giving some thanks. First off, to thank the Wooster First Prebyterian Church and their staff for accommodating us in the use of this space, especially Tim Hall for his setup and his technical assistance. As noted on the program, MCTV is here. They will be broadcasting a recording of this event on Channel 22 on February 18, 19, and 20 at noon and at 3 p.m. and on Channel 621 on February 19 and 8 p.m. and on February 19th at 8 p.m. and on February 20th at noon. And again, that's in your program, so you don't have to remember and write that down. The League of Women Voters will have this recording on our website as well soon. I would also like to thank the event sponsors that include the Worcester Homelessness Task Force, the Wayne County Housing Coalition, the Reentry Coalition, and the League of Women Voters of Wayne County. Their informational tables are located in the back of the hall here. This community meeting planning committee, and again, I'm going to call your name, so if you are here, I'm sure, you can just wave or just to let us know so people can see you. So it includes the Worcester Homelessness Task Force members, Susan Figge, Barb Friedhoff, Kevin Franklin, Wynn Jones, and Tom Monteleone. Two League of Women Voters of Wayne County representatives are here, Joy Hemphill, or we're on the committee, and Brenda Linick. I know she's in the back right now. Michelle Kelly from the Reentry Coalition, and Deb Catlett, James Fox, Katie Kugelman, and Rodney Mitchell from the Wayne County Housing Coalition. They all have given much of their time in working to create what I know is going to be an educational and informative forum this evening. Thanks also to the Wayne Medina Community Action and United Way of Wayne and Holmes County for their assistance with the printing needs for this evening. And finally, thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. The forum content is the property of the Homelessness Task Force, and written permission must be sought to rebroadcast the forum in its entirety or to print excerpts of it. There should be no private sound or video recording of this evening. So you all have been given upon entry a copy of the program, a listing of volunteer and advocacy opportunities, and an index card and a pencil to submit your contact information for the email group and unanswered questions that we may not get to this evening. So please submit the index card even if you are already on our email list. We still want you to submit it with your name and contact information. So we have a full meeting of speakers, questions and answer sessions, and time to visit the informational tables in the next 2 hours. So feel free to get up for water. Restrooms are located out the door to the left and then to the left there. Volunteers are available at the back of Brew Hall here to assist with any kind of questions you have throughout the evening. Staff members of the Reentry Coalition, which serves those previously incarcerated in jail or prison, will be available in the parlor, which is down the hall on the right-hand side, throughout the evening to visit with anyone interested in learning more about the services they provide. As you know, people returning from incarceration face a range of challenges, with housing being one of those. Okay, the common theme for this evening is a call for action. Every one of us has a role that we can play to address homelessness here in our community. Our first scheduled speaker, Erica Mulliran, the Continuum of Care Director with COHIO, the Coalition on Housing and Homelessness in Ohio, is unable to join us this evening, but copies of her slides are available on the COHIO information table in the back. So I will now introduce you to James Fox, who is the CEO of Community Action of Wayne and Medina and president of the Wayne County Housing Coalition, who's agreed to cover Erica's main points that are part of the PowerPoint slides that we'll be showing you tonight, as well as his own prepared comments. James will be talking about the Housing Coalition, goals, projects, and opportunities, and how people can get involved. Joy Hemphill is over here for the use really of the panel and the speakers. She's going to be keeping time for us and showing us cards to stop when we get to our time limit so that we can make sure we get through everything we want to in a timely fashion today. So welcome, James. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you all for being here. If we can start by just taking a look around this room. If everybody can just take a look around this room, because this is a really important element of the county that we live in. I've been across the country. I've worked in social services for almost 30 years, and I have not interacted with a community like Wayne County. And I think that that is the foundation and preface for everything that we're going to be talking tonight. But this really is about a call to action. So I am not Erica. We will get Erica back over. She's a phenomenal resource, and really the point of her presentation was to demonstrate the efforts that are not only going on here in our county, but a statewide effort, particularly related to some of our rural counties. And so looking at the balance of a state continuum of care, it's amazing the resources that are available to our community, and it's not just Cuyahoga and Franklin County. This model ensures that we have the same focus. Just a couple of points. We are represented in Region 4 of that state continuum of care. A quick definition of homelessness, because this comes up quite frequently. By the HUD definition, if you are living on someone's couch, if you're couch surfing, and that is a very common phenomenon, you are technically not considered homeless for the counts that are based on our funding, our services that we provide. So the definition, living in a shelter or transitional housing program, which would be sheltered homelessness, or living in a place not meant for habitation, such as a car, abandoned building, or an encampment. We are seeing a significant increase in the number of individuals that are living in their vehicles. And how we at Community Action started to figure that out was the dramatic increase in requests for car repair program. And it wasn't car repair program necessarily so that they could get up to Bueller's. It was car repair so that they had heat in their vehicle because they were living in their vehicle and still working and they needed to get to work. So this is an issue that is very predominant in our community. How this is counted, that point in time count, many of us in this room went out and did a physical count of our community. There's a slice of time and 2 days of the year that we go out and do a homeless point in time count. That's also combined with agency social service counts and then annual counts that are done throughout the year as well, just to try to get a sense of the level of need. So trending-wise, 580,000 people experience homeless of at least one night in 2022. I think what is interesting about some of these stats that we'll highlight, we have seen a decrease over the years, the most recent years of homelessness continuing to decline, but we're starting to see an uptick for the first time in 2017. And so those are the kind of stats that Ohio is particularly sensitive to, that what is going on from a social service perspective, from a state funding perspective, we're starting to see that uptick. I think more encouraging, some of the targeted interventions of Ohio and our local county housing coalition are specific to these subpopulations. And what is exciting to me, those efforts and that focus are showing dramatic impact and improvement. So we're seeing an 11% reduction in veteran homelessness between 20 and 22, a 55% decrease since 2009. And I think that this is a really critical point to recognize that the efforts that we take, and that when we focus on these plans, they are not just a plan that are sitting in a binder. This is something that we all interact with as a community on a daily basis. Families with children is another subpopulation that, from a state perspective as well as locally, we have had a particular point of focus. We've seen a 27% decrease in families experiencing homelessness. Let's get one thing on this slide that I wanted to point out. When we really look at what's going on right now with homelessness, and what's particularly salient in our community, is the increasing expense of housing. So affordable housing, really, we shouldn't be spending more than 30% of our income on housing related costs. So everybody can do that calculation quickly in your head. Many of us are probably right on that line, hovering over. We're interacting with individuals every day, working individuals. Community action, the folks that come into our door, the folks that receive our services, almost 80% of them are employed or on permanent disability. So that notion that individuals are unemployed, these are folks that are barely holding it together, living on that margin. And as housing costs increase, utility costs increase, rentals going up into the now, for that 2-bedroom apartment, we're looking in that $1,100 range. At the $12 an hour salary rate, that is incredibly difficult to maintain. We throw in the increase of utility expenses, then that becomes completely untenable, and we start to see that crisis spiral. So now really what that shift, as we've looked at the subpopulations, now our common mantra is really ending homelessness for all. And a lot of the strategies and programming that we're going to all be talking about tonight really focus on this particular area. But that rising homelessness is driven by increasing housing costs, the tightening of rental markets. Krista and Rodney will talk a little bit about the number of people that are on the wait list. So it's not that we don't have enough vouchers, it's that we don't have enough rental opportunities that will take those vouchers. And that is one key area of advocacy and intervention that we can all participate in. So investing in housing ends homelessness. I think that is important for us to all hear and think about, because we all play a role in this community. Okay, so now, onto a couple of slides that I actually know. And how I know is that there's 2 of them that have a misspelling, like immediately. So the first one to see it, you raise your hand and you'll get a pen. So I have the privilege of leading community action and being involved in the Housing Coalition, which I've been involved in the Housing Coalition in various capacities, but what an amazing, when we talk about the resources of this community, and I'm seeing about 30 people that I interact with on a weekly basis from local social service agencies. I've never worked anywhere where the community is so engaged and where our social service we've got a county commissioner sitting over here, I see people from the city of Wooster, the city of Orrville, everybody working together towards a common goal. And so this Housing Coalition really, in its definition, is that. It is a county-wide coalition that is focused on assisting people to avoid homelessness and sustain housing. We have input from consumers. And I think that is an important input that not all coalitions, we all have a tendency to get into our work life, we get into that rote method of doing things, but getting the input from people who are actually experiencing this on a day-to-day basis. And Chris is going to talk to you about some amazing outreach efforts that she and her staff are doing. So we do have some subcommittees. So once a month, the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 7:30 a.m., that was a.m., not p.m. For those of you interested, it's one of the times that all of these busy people, we can pretty much all guarantee that we get there at 7:30. But we all get together once a month and we're sharing resources, we're sharing challenges, we're reviewing these strategic plans to make sure that they aren't just a document sitting in a folder somewhere. And then we have these committee structures that allow us to go deeper into areas of specific need. And this is where there's some amazing work going on with the faith community. Reverend Franklin is here tonight, and there's no more ardent advocate and living the work on a day-to-day basis. The faith community in Wayne County is critically important to making this work. And so it is not just a social service issue. It is not just a faith-based or faith community issue. This is something that we all play a part in. The Policy and Government Committee is also critically important. And once again, I really am not getting paid to say this about the collaboration in this community, but even our governmental entities, our congresspeople, our county commissioners, our mayors, our representatives from the villages, everyone recognizes these issues and is invested in the process. And then ad hoc work groups that also will allow, as we'll talk about in a little bit, the opportunity for you in the general community to get involved and engaged in the needs. Okay, this one might be one of the ones with a spelling error, so just make it a game, keep people engaged. Oh, look, she found it. All right. Thanks a lot, Jen. So From the Housing Coalition, we have a 10-year plan to end homelessness. And this is an ever-evolving plan. It's one that actually in our next meeting, next week, we're going to be reviewing and making some tweaks because we have seen some shifts over the last year or two in the face of homelessness and the challenge of housing stability. So in general, we do conduct that point in time count. That is an opportunity to get engaged and actually walk the streets with members of our coalition to go out and do this count. And that is a great opportunity for us to interface with homeless individuals in the area as well. This helps us to identify and prioritize housing needs and also plays a role in dedicating funding relative to housing-related services. So actively participating in that balance of state continuum of care, this is where you see that focus and coordinated effort that has made such an impact in the specialized populations of veterans and families with children. Coordinated entry. Are we doing a good job of getting people into the system? Are we acting and very quickly and making sure that we are trying to decrease the length, severity of stay, and also trying to avoid the return for people having to come back into the system over and over? We have another resource here in this community in the College of Wooster, and the Housing Coalition engaged in an AMRE research project a few years ago related to affordable housing and homelessness in Wayne County. This is a report that we will be reviewing at our next Housing Coalition meeting for anybody who is interested, and it is posted online as well. But this is one of those documents that a resource with the brains right north of us went out and did thorough research. They looked at best practice models throughout the country and gave us suggestions. And interestingly enough, there were a couple of suggestions that we tabled because at the time they weren't relevant. Interestingly enough, within 2 or 3 years, here we are, and we are coming back to some of those initiatives. Some of our more local goals, looking at just establishing opportunities for permanent housing. The second one is just another testament to this community, working with the schools. The schools have a tendency to be that canary in the mine. They have a tendency to be that first indication that something is going wrong with a family when a teacher, a guidance counselor, a coach becomes aware that something's just not quite right. And so that engagement with the schools and other social service organizations can help us identify families in need who may be underhoused, that if we intervene early, we might prevent that cycle into homelessness. We're also looking at supporting any kind of housing development project that falls into that continuum of care needs. And the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about what that housing continuum looks like, but we also want to look at opportunities to develop, acquire affordable rental and ownership housing, increasing that housing stock in Wayne County. One exciting conversation that we're engaged with now deals with the Wayne County Land Bank and the opportunity to utilize that land bank to recruit properties into the land bank that may be tax deficient, that may be an obligation to a family trust, for example. We can bring them into the land bank. We can pair those properties with developers who understand the need, and we can provide support to those developers with the understanding that they are renting properties to the populations of greatest need. And oftentimes we are talking about not just the lowest level of homelessness, we are talking about individuals in that class of the working poor. And so there's very exciting opportunities developing in that area. Increasing access to low barrier emergency shelter. And again, for a community of our size, we have the Salvation Army and the work of the Wooster Homelessness Task Force in being able to stand up a severe weather shelter that is a low to no barrier shelter that when it is below a certain degree, individuals are able to come there and sleep and be warm and be safe. And for us to have that kind of service in a community of this size is remarkable. That organization and that function is staffed entirely by volunteers. And I think that that is absolutely amazing, that the staffing, the coordination that it takes to run a severe weather shelter is remarkable to me, that that's all volunteers. And that is another great opportunity for engagement. So just a couple more here, and then you get to stop hearing me talk and I get to pass it on to these remarkable human beings to my left. I like to look at this housing in the continuum. How many of you went to or are currently in college? Just by a show of hands. How many of you had support of a family member when you moved into your first apartment or house? That could be financial, that could be advice. My son called me, I can't make this stuff up, he called me on the way here to advise that water was coming out of a light fixture. Like, Tide, not a good time. But he had me to call. He had me to talk him through shutting off the breaker and what those immediate steps are. So when we talked a little bit about emergency shelter. When we go into that next realm of supportive housing, which Krista and Rodney are going to talk in greater detail. To me, that first dorm experience, my first on-campus apartment, that first apartment that I have that my mom and dad helped me move my stuff into, that was my supportive housing. The vast majority of the individuals that we're working with, and a huge percentage of the working poor, do not have those support systems. And they are thrust into situations that are not sustainable. And that is something that we really, as a community, these are the areas of focus in that supportive and transitional housing. We need more there. So our focus in community action is also to help move people through that and provide some of the social service support that can help them move beyond that transitional into middle income and market rate housing. Because that home ownership, when the home ownership potential in the immediate is houses starting in the low 300s. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that the low 300s isn't very affordable to me, okay? And so when we are talking about providing affordable, safe, scattered site opportunities within our community that are starting in the 80 to 100,000, when rentals are somewhere in the $700 to $800 range, not the very common $1,000 to $1,300 for a two-bedroom apartment. These are the initiatives that we really need to focus on and where we desperately need your help. So speaking of that, what can you do? Because we hear all these numbers, we talk about best practice, but what can we do, the people in this room? We've got the Wayne County Housing Coalition and those work groups that we talked about. Volunteering at the Severe Weather Shelter and other social service agencies. Trinity does a breakfast program every morning that is absolutely phenomenal. That is an opportunity to engage in time, in resource. But these next two don't cost you a dime. They cost you a little bit of thought, a little bit of knowledge, and maybe research. We need champions of fair and affordable housing in this community. We need you to go after tonight, when you're at the water cooler. Does anybody hang out by the water cooler anymore? There are probably some of you in this room are like, what is he talking about? But these are the conversations that need to be had. We need champions in this community that understand. And that second bullet point is a tough one, and I'll be the first one to say it. The phenomenon of not in my backyard, or NIMBY. And Krista will be talking about this a little bit as well. We can all sit here tonight and say, I believe in fair and affordable housing. Everyone in this community should have access to fair and affordable housing. Until that fair and affordable housing is going in next door to you. And that is something that we must challenge ourselves. And I think about it every day, because if we're being honest with ourselves, it's one of those things that causes you pause. But when you experience that pause, individuals who have support, safety, and security are infinitely less of a drain on our community as someone who is not, right? So when they have the support of our agencies, when they have that safety, Maslow's hierarchy of need, they don't have to worry about safety and security. When those are taken care of, we have individuals that contribute to our society and really become a neighbor that you wouldn't even know. So that is something, because we need that voice to be heard in our community. Engaging in affordable housing development, there are some exciting projects that need donors, that need advocates. When we talk about some supportive housing initiatives, we need advocacy from in this room and beyond. And if you really want to dive in, become a landlord. I know that sounds a little bit nuts, but really we have such an incredible need right now. And so the opportunity, the stock market's not doing all that great. So if you want to take a little chunk of that out, we buy a property, we help you fix it up, and then you just agree to rent to our folks. And you know, it sounds in jest, but that is an opportunity. We need more housing units. Lastly, there is my contact information. Joy, I think it's fair to say I nailed it on the time. But really, reach out at any time. If you have questions, we'll be available after the formal talk tonight. I'm excited about the question and answer, but please never hesitate to reach out if you have any other questions or would like more information about how to engage. Thank you so much for being here.
Great, thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce Krista Kidney, is the Director of Homelessness and Housing Services at 180. She's worked as a case manager and housing advocate in the field for the past 17 years. And Rodney Mitchell also is joining us, who is the Deputy Director at Wayne Metropolitan Housing Authority and has been on staff there for 14 years. So they're going to be speaking about permanent supportive housing and other initiatives as solutions to homelessness. If you have a question for them or James Fox, we will be lining up behind the stand-up mic over here on the left side, where Catherine will be to take questions after this session is over. Okay, so as you're thinking about a question, feel free to line up, or if you have a question you don't want to ask but you want to submit, you have these note cards to do so. All right? So I will go ahead and turn it over to Krista and Rodney right now. Thank you.
Seems like James had a lot to say. I mean, that's a tough act to follow, so we're going to try to do our best here. So we're going to talk about the current initiatives, boots on the ground. What are we doing to combat the housing, the homeless crisis that we're having? So what we're going to talk about now is what's happening now, what's on the horizon, street outreach, the rapid rehousing, and then we're going to get into the discussion on permanent supportive housing.
Thank you, Rodney. I'll ask you all to bear with my voice. It's not real strong tonight, but I do have a support person over here. If it gives out, she has my slides, and she might just jump right up here. First, I'm going to start talking about street outreach. As James mentioned, at 180, myself and staff members that we have do focus on street outreach. It's obviously no secret that we have a visible homeless population here in Wooster, sometimes Rittman, sometimes Orville, other outlying areas of the county. And although we have all of these wonderful faith-based services and, sorry, I'm not doing that, and social service providers, we're not always easy to access when you're in Rittman and you need to be at an appointment in Wooster and you don't have a car. We're not always easy. It's not easy for everybody to get to us. So in 2021, we received a grant from the state at 180 to start providing dedicated street outreach services. So my team is all sitting over here, my team of case managers and some of our shelter staff. They can raise their hands if they want, but those are the individuals that you will see out in the community. One main one is in the community, but pretty much all the time. The rest of them help out as needed as well. But they are going out into the community to the places where these individuals are going for meals, where they're going to the living room to spend some time during the day at the Salvation Army, where they're going to find safe places, the library, wherever that might be. When someone's focus for the day is finding food or figuring out where you're going to sleep at night, asking them to go from agency to agency for your appointments, to turn in your paperwork, to do all of these things we need them to do to be eligible for our programs, just really doesn't become the priority when you're worried about food and where you sleep. I don't know about your crises, but mine don't follow a schedule. So asking them to follow a schedule when all day is a crisis each day, trying to meet those basic needs, means we need to go to them. We need to go help them and not expect them to come to us all the time. So with street outreach, we do, take the services to them. And we're helping them with things like making it to appointments, engaging in employment training, getting medication, searching for housing, so on and so forth. Housing is our end goal with street outreach, but to get to that, we need to build relationships, get their engagement, and services that will help them along that way. So you will see, Rodney and I are not necessarily going to read these slides to you. We're not going to read the data on the slides. It's there for you to look at. But you will see that in 2022, 180 did serve 53 different individuals with street outreach services. And those 53 individuals receive many, many hours of one-on-one case management services to help them in their quest toward housing and stabilization. Next is our rapid rehousing program. This is our largest housing program at 180. This is one that we have been administering since 2010, so this isn't new. We've been doing this for a while. But this is a short-term rent assistance program for individuals that are literally homeless. So they're living on our streets or they're living in our shelters, and they need help reestablishing that housing. So this is where our team, our staff, is helping them to search for those units that are available, to work with those landlords. We are working, this is all landlords, private landlords in our community. This is not housing that 180 owns. This is not, we're sending them to the housing authority to units they have. We are working with private landlords out in the community that are willing to take a chance on some individuals that might have some scars in their background. The goal of rapid rehousing is to quickly house them, quickly end that homelessness episode, increase their self-sufficiency, and help them maintain that housing on their own. And we're trying to help them do that as quickly as they can. So those case plans are intense, and we are asking them to work really hard alongside of us. Again, you can see the data there. In 2022, 115 households were served at 180 with rapid rehousing assistance. That could have been one-time payment to get people in, up to that 12 months of rental assistance. All of them being literally homeless prior to our assistance. We had many other households during that same year that were eligible, that were approved for that assistance, but were not able to find housing to move into. So they may still be homeless today, or they may have been forced to move in with family members, double up, so that they could at least have somewhere safe to be temporarily.
So one of our programs is home place housing. It's 29 units that Wayne Metropolitan Housing Authority own and manage. It's scattered throughout downtown. And what we do is we partner with local agencies such as the Counseling Center in 180 and Anazao to house these individuals. Sometimes with the landlord crisis, as far as they don't have nowhere to go. So what they do is they contact us, and if we have a unit from home place housing, we move these individuals in home place housing. What I like about home place housing is we can get our own hands on it because it's a unit that we own and manage. So if an individual is having problems, we can contact the agency to say, hey, this person is having problems, or if this person isn't paying rent, and then they can follow up. So that's kind of that supportive piece that we need. The problem with home place housing is it's scattered. So if we had something as far as right there, where the case manager is right there, I think it would be very, very beneficial. But right now, it's a lot of the development is the housing, duplexes, and the success rate, I would say around 70%. And the reason why is because we put so much emphasis on trying to get them to get better. So permanent supportive housing, what is permanent supportive housing? So when you hear about permanent supportive housing is what you hear is the permanent side of it. The main piece is the support. It's providing the support for these individuals, these vulnerable individuals that need help, that need that support, and not just housing. So we ask everybody around here, you see these individuals who are homeless, who need housing. One of the questions is, well, why can't we just throw them in housing? Yeah, you think that's a simple fix, and it's not a simple fix just to throw individuals in housing. They need that support. So what is permanent supportive housing? How would that look? If we had permanent supportive housing, that means that permanent means a foundation, providing a foundation for these individuals so they can have housing, and maybe they can graduate to be a citizen and pay their rent on time, and individuals like everybody else in this community would love to have. But before that happens, they need some type of support. And permanent supportive housing, in my opinion, I think is the answer.
All right, next, I want to take just a minute to highlight some permanent supportive housing that does exist here in Wayne County. How many of you know that the Counseling Center has 15 apartments of permanent supportive housing? Yeah, a few? Okay, great. So back in 2015, These 15 apartments opened after many years of hard work on the counseling center's part because they saw a need for especially young adults that they were serving needing this housing, but also support to go with it to stabilize them. So they were able to build, all grants, build these 15 apartments that serve 18 to 26-year-olds that must be homeless and experiencing severe and persistent mental illness at entry. If you would take a minute and read these successes, we wanted to take time to go over this because it's a great story. They've served 32 residents since they opened in 2015. In that time, now I just told you the population they serve, 18 to 26-year-olds who were homeless and experiencing severe mental illness. In those 8 years, only 3 evictions have had to occur. 15 people that moved out are now doing well. You can see the information there. 10 of them now living on their own. Some married, some have children. Over 50% of the current residents have a job of some kind. So I think this is a true testament to making the housing available, having the supportive services in place, and then seeing that these individuals can thrive. So we have all this research across the nation that tells us permanent supportive housing stabilizes, improves lives. But this is right here in our own backyard, and what the counseling center has been able to do in 8 years with 15 apartments. Another permanent supportive housing option here that exists right now in Wayne County is a program also at 180. Department of Housing and Urban Development gives us funding for 13 vouchers each year. We share those with Ashland County, but those are meant to serve our chronically homeless individuals. So chronically homeless means they've experienced at least a year of homelessness, either all at once or spread out through the past 3 years, and they have a disability of long duration. These vouchers allow us to get those people into housing with, again, private landlords. This is scattered site. These individuals are spread all throughout our community. And then we have the supportive services that we can wrap around and bring to them to keep that housing in place. And we have a housing retention case manager that really can focus individually and intensively with the individuals that need the extra assistance to maintain their housing. Think back to March of 2015 for me. Think back to homelessness and what was going on in March of 2015. I don't know if anybody remembers. If you remember March of 2015, what was the big homelessness issue at that time? Tent City was being shut down, right? That is when this program started. Our first 5 participants on this program were men, 5 men, having to leave Tent City with nowhere to go. And we were able to utilize these vouchers to house them right in the community, provide the supportive services, and get them stabilized. Again, we serve 45 Wayne County residents since this program began back in 2015. When individuals do obtain income on this program, they do start paying 30% of their income toward their rent to the landlord as well, and 180 pays the remainder.
Pending developments, permanent supportive housing. Most of you know we acquired the property on Rebecca Street, the old Lamplighters. So that was one of our starting points, is trying to combat the supportive housing or the homeless issue that we are having. So the property is 1007 Rebecca Street on 2.16 acres, and then there's the big Lamplighters commercial property there as well. So how that unit look? Well, our main layout, which is going to be modified, we wanted 12 units. We try to figure out how many units we can get on this one lot, how many people we can serve on this one lot. We came up with 12. Not only did we come up with 12, we had to figure out the structure of that unit. How would it look? How could it benefit the client? How can it help? So when we develop and we've seen these type of structure with the architect, how can we make this efficient for these individuals so they can have a good success rate? So what we came up with is 2 by each other, 1 level apartments. And that, I think, was one of the best ideas dealing with these individuals, these vulnerable individuals. And what I mean by that is you got 2 units side by side, none in the middle, 2 units side by side, the way you come in and out of the building is very, very helpful, not only for helpful, but just for these clients. And what I mean is the traffic, it lowers down the traffic of the unit. So what I'm getting at is every implement of this project was carefully designed by a lot of these agencies specifically for these individuals. So the units will be approximately 600 to 700 square feet. Units will include a kitchen, bedroom, just like any other unit. Now we're in the middle of the zoning variance, and right now we're in the middle of modifying those units so it can fit the zoning variance, and then hopefully at some point we can go back to the zoning variance and see if we can get that approved. The existing building will be renovated as a service building. I talked earlier about how it's important to have that support on site. Well, you have these agencies in this building assisting these individuals. And remember when I said permanent supportive housing, people think, okay, is this permanent? Or will these people go on, get a voucher, and then you have more individuals who can also fulfill that need? So that building will take place where they can have that type of services right at their fingertips. It's not going to be 24 hours. I know we hear that a lot. It's not going to be 24-hour services, but we can all agree that the amount of services from Monday through Friday, even from 8 to 5 p.m., will make an impact.
We've already kind of hit on the target population for permanent supportive housing, which again follows through for that Rebecca Street property. Chronically homeless single adults or couples that have the disability and service needs. This slide here kind of highlights what did we look at to determine that we needed additional permanent supportive housing in Wayne County. That top number, that 114 homeless individuals in January 2023 point in time count is actually 117. Reverend Franklin handed me a few more surveys right when I got here tonight. So those are individuals, obviously homeless, needing housing in the community. You can see the waiting list information there. James pointed this out earlier in his presentation, said we'd be sharing this. So we have 67 households on our waiting list at 180 for that rapid rehousing or that need for immediate housing. The Housing Authority's waiting list for their voucher programs and their public housing at 1,000, give or take, on both of those programs. One thing that Erica, if she was here tonight, would have highlighted is that Ohio does a system analysis. The Coalition on Homelessness and Housing in Ohio, they do a system analysis each year of what are the top needs across the state and where does each region rank in some of those needs. Permanent supportive housing is something they look at based off of all of the data that they have in this database across the state. Region 4, which we fall within, has been ranked as the 4th region out of 17 in need for permanent supportive housing, and we've maintained that 4th place since 2019. So even at the state level, they're recognizing Wayne County, Lorain, Ashland, and Medina are the other counties in our region. So great recognition there at the state level of that additional need. And then just that reminder that anytime someone remains homeless, and the longer they remain homeless, the more we see an increase in mental health concerns, behavioral issues, involvement in the criminal justice system, and the chronic medical issues. So those are some of the key things we looked at in determining what's next, what do we need to do next in our community to try to make an impact. My last slide here for you is this is a list of some entities, offices that have already provided support for the permanent supportive housing project that Rodney spoke about. We would ask that you all, as James said earlier, as Rodney said, we'd ask that you all would become supporters in recognizing the need for this housing. At the very foundation, homelessness is a housing issue. If we do not have housing available, we don't end homelessness. It's about as basic as you can say it. So we ask that you would give these individuals a chance to have this place to call home. Maybe think back to the success stories I shared with you, 8 years of permanent supportive housing at the counseling center. Maybe 8 years from now, we could stand here and tell you success stories from this project in the same way. I would say the best days of my career, and I think all of our housing staff over here would echo this, the best days we have are the days that we are able to say, welcome home, to someone that has been experiencing homelessness and is now moving into an apartment. The joy, the tears, the safety they can now feel, I can't describe it to you. I hope that our speakers later can kind of bring that home for you. Those are our best days. And it's my hope that those words can be spoken to many more people in the coming years here as we work together as a community to provide more housing opportunities to our low-income households.
So as Krista touched based on, this week I got an email from an individual out of our home place housing, and she wrote that, thank you. Thank you for helping me. When no one else would help, thank you. She's striving now. She's been in the unit for 2 years. She's paid her rent on time. She keeps her unit clean. Those are the messages that you would love to hear. When you're working in the field that we're working in, those are what you want to hear. Is it going to always be that case? No, it's not going to always be that case. But if you can make an impact on somebody's life, why not? So we need everybody's help. You know, one of the reasons why I stay here in Wooster is I realize that the support that Wooster has, the support that Wayne County has, is unlike any other support. I went to DC. You can go to all these big cities. They all have the same problem: housing, homelessness. I believe that we can, Wayne County, Wooster, we can really solve it or make a huge impact or a dent on this problem. But how are we going to do it? Advocacy, reaching out, trying to get funding to help, because we need money. We need money. We need the support. And it's not all about money. It's about the support of the community. The support of community can make an impact. So think of it like this. Instead of thinking, okay, I don't want this in my neighborhood, how would you feel if you were that person? How would you feel if that was you and you hear that? You don't want to be a part of that. You don't even want to do anything to make your life even better. We all need support at some point in our lives. So one thing to help in the back, there's an advocacy contact where you can contact your local government, state officials. Please reach out, because we do need you guys' help. I don't see this problem going away. I can only see it getting worse if we don't do anything about it.
Okay, we're going to take questions from the audience now. So we have a microphone over here. If you have a question, feel free to get up to the microphone. I would like you to, while you're there, state your name. We'd like you to have a brief question, and we can see who on the panel up here can answer that for you. Or if they can't, you can write it down and submit it, and we'll make sure you get an answer to it. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Tamika, and listening to you talk about the permanent support housing, my question is, I heard you say in regards to the counseling center Orchard Court apartment, there's 15 apartments, and they serve 18 to 26-year-olds, so who are homeless or experience mental illnesses. So my question is, what type of criteria, because I'm new to the city, and I'm talking to a lot of people that have been here for years, as far as my neighbors, and they're saying there's a lot of homelessness here in the city. And so I would like to know, what type of criteria do you use in order to decide who gets the 15 apartments? Because of approximately the number of how many homeless people it is within the city that could be within that age rate.
I'll touch on this a little bit. I'll give the disclaimer that this is the counseling center's area, so I'll give a little information, and I think we can get further clarification later. Is
Sure.
that
I mean, if
correct?
there's more information you need, write it down and they can get you more information. But go ahead, Krista. Thank you.
So my understanding is they are individuals that are getting into those apartments are already service linked with them, or one of the agencies has made a referral and they've already started receiving services at the counseling center. So they are identifying those individuals from within their existing clientele for those apartments, is my understanding.
I think this does bring up a really important point. We do have a tendency to have a lot of programs, and a lot of it comes down to the grants that guide our programs. And there are eligibility requirements and restrictions, and you are absolutely correct. We need more permanent supportive housing for a broader range of our community that isn't as limited at age or diagnoses. And so I think that's a really good point that you've made.
Okay, go ahead. Next.
Hi, my name is Melanie Garcia from the Wayne County Community Foundation, and this question is for Rodney. You mentioned the permanent supportive housing that you're trying to build on Rebecca Street, and you mentioned that there were going to be 2 one-story buildings. Just wondering why one-story and not multi-story, so that you could maybe help more people? Is it a matter of expense or just regulations and zoning?
A little bit of both, zoning, and then you have the 1 bedroom, and then money. I mean, everybody knows that materials cost. So what we try to do is we try to keep it down as much as we can. So not only that, let's say if this project won't go through because of the funding or because of the money. So 1 bedroom, 1 story, we try to make it to where it's a point where it can benefit the client, because some of these clients have issues where if you get into the point where you have a 2-story building or a more of a larger unit, it can lower the success rate for the individual. So we looked at all aspects too regarding 2 stories and 1 story.
I wondered if it was strictly financial that you were trying to keep the cost down, or if there were therapeutic or reasons that.
Multiple.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Mark Gooch. Thank you for doing this once again. So in terms of advocating, do you have specific projects or proposals in mind so that if we were to advocate for funding, we can say they have 5 more Orchard Court-like projects that they want to do, or X number of properties in the land bank that could be purchased and funding to build on those properties, that sort of specific?
So I would say for starters, the permanent supportive housing project Rodney talked about on the old Lamplighters property would be the key advocacy project. 5 would be great. We're trying to start with 1 and hitting roadblocks. So advocacy to get 1 through would be phenomenal. I'll let James touch on the land bank piece.
Part of the land bank is a phenomenal structure. It's just a matter of developing that even further, and that's underway now. I think additionally, there is quite a bit of development that is occurring. There are 2 current pending development projects here in the city of Wooster and also in Orville that with a requirement of setting aside a certain percentage of low-income housing units. And those are opportunities that may come down to advocacy and just having that voice when it comes down to public meetings. And both cities do a very good job of making sure that information is available both on their website and in community meetings.
Ohio's table in the back, there is information about how you can sign up for their advocacy alerts. They have a whole advocacy branch out of the Coalition of Homelessness and Housing in Ohio. And they would send out things when the legislature might be cutting the Ohio Housing Trust Fund, or that might be at risk. And that's a huge funder to a lot of our housing programs. Different pieces like that are happening at state and national level that could really use advocacy from local agencies and community. And then there are some advocacy ideas and tips on the advocacy sheet back on the Housing Coalition table that Rodney mentioned as well to kind of help with ideas.
Hello, my name is Paul Luster. I'm first chair of the Orville Worcester NAACP. What about a person who is a sexual offender tag, who's homeless, who's on SSI, and needs someone to manage their money. Is there anything available for that person?
Okay, so to clarify the question, you want me to focus just on the helping with their money piece or all of the above?
All of the above.
All of the above, okay. The managing their money piece, I don't have a good suggestion for. Payee services are very limited in the community. Housing wise, there will be some housing programs in the community they will not be able to utilize. However, any of our programs at 180, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, we have no restriction to who we can serve as far as sex offender status. The issue then becomes we're working with those landlords out in the community. So finding that landlord out in the community that will allow that person a chance in housing. But we do it, and we do it on a pretty regular basis.
Okay, and the time frame on that is what? The time frame?
On length of assistance?
Yes.
Or rapid rehousing is that 1 to 12 months. Permanent supportive housing has no time limit to it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, my name is Tanya, and I'd like to say, before I ask my question, having used these services for 30 years, I know that sounds like a long time, but sometimes, there are a lot of hurdles to get over and stuff. If it wasn't for these services, the housing and stuff, I would have never been able to raise my children. I also raised 2 grandchildren because my daughter was an addict. If it wasn't for, and it's not just Metro Housing, that's the great big one, but other assistance, I was able to work but still receive some assistance and go on. Had I just had a job, I probably would have lost my housing. And like today, I just quench because I look at 1-bedroom housing and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I worked, I wouldn't be able to afford that because, they'll take away any food assistance and other stuff. And you just don't really realize how much it really, really does help people. But my question is, I know the Orchard Glen apartments are, the community or counseling center clients. You as Metropolitan Housing, when people come off the streets, you don't know anything about it. I'm assuming that it's going to be a collaboration between several community agencies to figure out, do you have a certain criteria, or are you going to collaborate with other agencies to see who is going to go in here? I mean, I know obviously it's not families, but where are you going to pull the criteria from that? Do you know where I'm getting at? Like the counseling centers, obviously they're clients.
So you're saying who are we going to work with for this?
Yeah,
Rebecca
how are you
Street,
going to
or-
determine, is there going to be the counseling center, you have to have certain, eligibility to be a client and this and that. How are you going to, because Metropolitan, you can come off the streets and apply for housing. What is your criteria going to be? Have you gotten to that point yet? Is there going to be a special criteria?
So it will be similar to our home place housing.
Okay.
So we will work with the agencies. The agencies will do the screening and they will let us know this individual is ready to be housed into that supportive housing piece, because we rely a lot on the agencies and the information that they provide us. So once they allow us, or they tell us this person is ready for the supportive housing piece, then we come in as from a more housing manager type style, and they come for more of the supportive side.
So it won't be like the waiting list, we'd have to wait on a waiting list and then.
And that depends on either the need through the agencies. Yeah, so
you.
like home place housing, the counseling center, they call us and say, hey, we have this individual who needs housing. And then they give us the case manager. The case manager come, they sign a lease, and then we get them moved in. And then that doesn't end that piece.
So is there a
Still-
time limit? Will they eventually be able to either get a Section 8 voucher or go about their stuff? Is there going to be a time limit? Are you going to say, okay, we'd like you ideally to be here for 2 years, but it's going to be individual circumstances, but is that the goal, or can they live there forever?
Yeah, there's no time limit.
Okay.
The idea is that once a person, you can say graduate, once a person feel the need that they don't need this type of services no more, what they end up doing is they get on our waiting list. That's one of the criteria of home place housing, is once they move in, the requirements is for them to get on the voucher waiting list. So when their name comes to the top, then they can have that option to choose. Some people might not be ready, and some people might, so they can end up going and
So
find.
my last question is that going to be a criteria for them to keep working with other agencies to keep their housing assistance?
Yes, we would like to, but you can't.
You can't
force it.
do that, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's our time for this segment of questions and answers. So let's go ahead and we're going to move on and introduce to you sort of our final session with the survivors of homelessness that are with us tonight. led by Reverend Dr. Kevin Franklin from the Trinity United Church of Christ. And again, they're going to do a presentation first, but if you have a question, you can go over to the side. We do have time then for that. And line up at the microphone. We're going to pick our microphones down here for your group, and Kevin will actually be moderating the whole thing, including the question and answer session as well. So thank you, Kevin, and your group here for.
It's good to have all of you here today. If there's one thing that I've learned from the breakfast program, been walking in that group for 19 years now, and I've met a lot of people, I have a lot of friends there. I've learned that it's not about the food. It's about the community. It's about a place where you can be treated well, a place where you have all your needs met. There are a lot of needs, and I see people here from all different parts of the community. I see some folks that work with us in the breakfast program. But what we really need is just an attitude of support for people. So I hope when you see folks around the community, you say hello. Say, have a good day. Make sure we all belong in that community. I also want you to begin to think about all the people that have passed through your life who helped make you who you are. It's a lot of people along our way, no matter where we were, that helps us with those kinds of things. And I've learned that people can make it if they have just one lifeline, just one place that they know that they can go to be heard, and someone who will help them to find the services that they need. And so today, I'm grateful for our two guests here who are going to tell their stories. And we have three questions that are going to be posed. The first is a question that people often ask. How did you become homeless? What were the circumstances surrounding your ending up without a shelter? The second is to talk about some of the challenges when they were homeless. And the third is, how did people help them to work their way into housing? So today, I'll let you folks introduce yourselves when you speak. And we got two mics here. I don't need two. And you can share your story about how you became homeless. Ted, would you like to go first?
Well, I was a homeowner for almost 40 years. And I was very fortunate to be a homeowner for that period of time because I was what most people consider working poor. I was always one paycheck away from all of it being gone. And I was able to maintain that for that period of time. And I had an opportunity in the spring of last year to what was supposed to better myself and go into a landscaping job that was supposed to be better. And as it turned out, well, you run out of work, you run out of money, and you run out of time. And to be quite honest, that's exactly what put me in the position I am today, and that is homeless. I'm currently, my address is my car. And I have somehow survived to this point. It's not easy. It's very stressful. And every day you find yourself living hand to mouth and without very many opportunities to better yourself. And well, that's kind of where I am today.
We go next or ask questions? All right, I wrote mine down. I was in an abusive relationship, which led me to my drug addiction, methamphetamine. And when life got so hard that I thought I needed to escape, I went from just smoking it to shooting it. The escape I was longing for, chasing for, only ended in more drugs and only satisfying and numbing that found me in my many times dead. 67 to be exact. 18 of those were self-inflicted. I was so... Does that work? Can you hear me? Yeah. 18 of those were self-inflicted. I used to think I was cursed, that God didn't want me, neither did the devil. The reason I believe that was that I met God the first time I died, the only time, and I couldn't get back to him no matter what I tried. I couldn't stay dead. But all this spiritual searching led me to losing everything I cared about and loved. My son was with me the whole time, also addicted to drugs because of my addiction. But God had something to show me, and before I knew it, I lost everything, including myself and my son. Even though he had been there with me the whole time. He had died many times in my arms. We went from living in a car and out of a storage unit to no car, living in one trap house to another, which is a house where people do a lot of drugs, amongst other things. On the streets, campgrounds, garbage dumpsters, woods, under bridges, you name it, we slept there, been there. We ate what we could, how we could, and got robbed and beaten. There was a point where our addiction even finally divided us, and then I was so alone, and being a woman addicted and homeless is a 24/7 job. To survive, I did more drugs, always afraid to sleep, staying up for long periods of time, mostly in a psychosis. At one point, I stayed up for 27 days straight, a personal hell I imposed on myself. I knew if I slept, I would be robbed, raped, or so frozen, I might lose my fingers or toes or more. It's easy for a man in this town to use a bathroom than it is for a woman. Businesses won't let you in to use the bathroom or get warm when you're homeless because, well, basically we smelled, we looked horrible, and always had to carry our things with us. And because they thought we were going to shoot up or steal from the stores. And the bathroom, it's a big problem. Even when I cried for help, I was standing in my own way, but I couldn't see it. I had finally gotten some help through Pastor Kevin and the steps of the Trinity Church and the Salvation Army's Warming Center. Finally, 180 had gotten me into Julia's place and a housing voucher. I stayed for 3 weeks, but my own fight led me back onto the streets. I couldn't find anyone willing to work with me on getting an apartment, so I just kept getting high, trying to survive. But this time, I decided to help my son get off the streets and help my street family the only way I could. I started carrying my stuff in my bag that we needed, like medicine, food, clothes, first aid, Narcan, batteries, anything I thought any one of us might need. I was the one that would show up when somebody needed socks. It's cold out, raining, wet, I had it. If somebody needed Narcan to bring them back, and I need CPR, I brought a lot of people back. Because drugs in the streets are a very big problem. And a lot of people keep turning to it more and more. Because they have nowhere else to go, so they turn to the drugs. That's also when I stopped caring about all material possessions, because people kept robbing me everywhere. Like, I stopped caring anymore about that. And I started caring about people's hearts and their souls. I started vowing to myself that when they gave me hate, I was going to love them even more. Somewhere in my soul, that's what I knew God wanted me to do. But that is another story in itself. I was going through a spiritual awakening. And being on these streets and a woman making bad choices, putting myself in dangerous situations, got me into one which changed everything drastically. I was kidnapped, and I didn't even realize it until I'd already been hand-delivered to a sex trafficker. Drugged, and I had to fight my way out of the house, and by the grace of God, found help and got away. That ended me up being placed into a domestic violence center which led me to getting sober on my own, helping more girls that had been sex trafficked. I had ended up back here in Worcester to face my triggers and my demons because I decided I'm not running anymore from not anyone, anything, or myself. I've completely changed my mind, the way I think, and how I react to things. I found a new purpose within me to help others and a peace within myself that I've never had before. I'm almost a year clean and finally accepting the help through 180 and through going to AA and NA meetings and a lot of meditation, self-healing, and searching for knowledge. I've made it to where I am now. I do not regret anything I've done or been through. They were all lessons that God was trying to show me where I needed to be, who I am, and who I'm becoming. I'm grateful for all of it. My new goal is to help others find healing, peace, and a home, a way to come back and deal with life on life's terms. I want to help these people, a lot of them. They came family to me in the community. I care a lot. I want to show them that there's a different way to go, but it's their choice. Sometimes even when the one is great, the right options for the individual may not be there. I'm now getting ready to have my own apartment again after almost 6 years of being homeless, or as I call it, home free. Through all of this, I've been humbled and I have seen life from many different perspectives. I have been schooled in a very harsh way, but I've learned to value myself, love myself, be kind always. Always be ready to adapt and change, because that's what life is, change. We never know what to expect. We're all one paycheck away from losing everything. When you positively impact the lives of others, the impact has a ripple effect that will inadvertently affect everyone. You put a drop of love in the sea of people and it'll ripple out more love. And that's what we need. Unconditional love and understanding to change everything we got to do. We have to accept people.
The obvious, the most simple things become the most difficult things that you will face every single day. Feeding yourself. Most people don't really think about that because you're financially stable. When you are homeless, there are no guarantees that you're going to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, or even a snack.
Or water.
Or just a bottle of water. It's not there. How do you get it? Well, it takes something else you don't have. Money. How do you get that? The second, or first, depending on how you look at it, where are you going to sleep? Where are you going to wake up? How are you going to take a shower? Wash your face? Shave?
Just go pee.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, a public restroom does not guarantee you anything but a toilet. Most public facilities or stores that have a public restroom will chase you off if you try to wash up.
Yep.
Shave.
They're too long.
Look, try to make yourself look somewhat presentable for the day.
So you can get a job, because nobody's going to.
So maybe, just possibly, you can earn some money to eat. Maybe put some gas in your car so you know at least you have a car to sleep in that night. Without gas, you don't have a car. Right? It's pretty simple, but it's very difficult. And, I mean, there's every single thing that you take for granted when you're stable and have a home. Every single one of those things is a very big challenge every day, all day long. Those are just a couple thoughts off the top of my head. Don't take it for granted. Don't, because it can happen to any one of us, all of us. I was one of those people for a long, long time. It'll never happen to me. It'll never happen to me. Well, here we are. That's about all I got there with that one.
do want to say one thing. Stop judging so much. Please. Accept people for where they're at in their lives. We don't ever know when or where any one of us is coming from. We're dealing with problems, deaths, all kinds of things. We're all at different points in our lives and our journeys in this life. And the best thing we can do is hand some kindness to people. Don't judge a book by its cover. We're not all the same. Our circumstances are all different, but we can change. Everyone can change. And it's a community of people, a world full of people. We have to help each other. We're humans. And it's about the kindness and humanity. Love's the answer, man. I know that sounds like a hippie thing to say, but it's true. It really is true. Unconditional love. And we got to show that more. I know with our phones and our busy schedules and our computers, we just hide behind it and I think it's not going to happen and we don't got to see it when we don't want to, but it's always out there. Maybe not here, but it is everywhere. People get hurt a lot. And it doesn't matter what age. Every age. We just got to look out for one another. That's pretty much what I got to say.
I do have a question. This seems like such a big and overwhelming issue and problem. If you are on the street and you are homeless, what is something that one of us can do that would make a difference in your day? You mentioned showing respect, which I think is important, acknowledging human beings for human beings, but I know some of us feel like, well, are you open to us saying, hey, we think we can find some ways to help you? Or can I just buy you lunch? What do you want from every day from the community, and what do you suggest as individuals we can do?
To be honest,
Your name just...
Oh, I'm sorry, Barb Knappich.
Thank you. Yeah.
we just want to be treated like equals. We don't want to be treated like we're less than because we don't have an address, or that we don't amount to anything, that we're just the dirt under somebody's feet. We just want to be treated like equals and seen like we're there and not just excused. We don't want special treatment. It's just, we just want to be equals.
Hello, Erica. Thank you for sharing. I just wonder if you'd talk a little bit about, I feel like there's always a distinction in people who we're willing to help, and often if you're on drugs or you use illicit drugs or things, that's the group that we no longer care about because they're on drugs and we can separate them. There's always someone we make more disposable than the others, and you having experience in that situation, if you could speak about the things that led you to that and how you got through and you deal with when people sort of dehumanize because of drug use.
There's not real one answer for that, I don't think. I've just learned to accept people for where they're at in their lives, and try to help them the best that I can without giving all of myself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And some people will do that. They will take you for everything that you have, so you can't just give everything. But just try to assess the situation the best that you can. But the truth of it is, people that are on a substance abuse, they're not going to seek the right help until they accept that problem within themselves first. Until they get, honestly, I hate to say it, but when they get to that rock bottom point, then usually that's what has to happen. Then they turn around and accept it, or unfortunately, they go the opposite way. But we can only help so much. I wish we could help more. But they got to get the help they need by asking for it, the right help, and assessing it, accepting themselves where they're at.
Hi, my name is Charlene Hasinski, and first of all, I just want to say I really commend both of you for your courage and your honesty on coming here and speaking before all of us and giving us an actual heads up and an actual, personal experience, and so we can all kind of get a better view of what's actually going on with everybody. We see that, like you said, people might be first to look at or judge. I mean, I have dealt with it personally in my family, so I am aware of a lot of it, and you know, a lot of the issues that everybody faces. I actually had a question. It wasn't for that particular point, but it was for the Housing Coalition.
Sure.
Something that came to my attention a few years ago was when there's an eviction on someone's record, that stays on their record forever. And there is such a thing in the state of Ohio. That's under Ohio law. It's not expungible. It doesn't come off. I think that something needs to be done to change that, because that only contributes much longer to the problem of homelessness for everyone, because you know, people are having their records expunged from felonies. I don't understand why an eviction would stay on someone's record forever. It could possibly not only hurt them for in the future finding a place to live once they may have changed or the situation has changed, but also with finding jobs, you know, just all sorts of problems because of it. And I'm wondering if the coalition could find a way to work with legislative in changing that law, where there's a way that it could come off after a certain time period, whatever, you know, because I think that needs to be looked at.
Any of you have any comments, response? I know you don't have a microphone. Go up.
I know Josh Hinkle from Legal Aid, we kind of discussed that with the eviction. You're absolutely right, because that can hinder a person's housing. And I know Legal Aid is working hard as far as getting the record expunged for that individual. And I know in the past, if a landlord can agree, let's say if a landlord agrees that they no longer want that eviction on their record, I think by law, and don't quote me, by law they're allowed to do that. But we did that for an individual.
I tried that for someone in another community, not here in Wayne, but in a different, and they don't even want to be bothered with that. So I really think it's an issue, legislative. People need to band together somehow to get this law changed in Ohio. It has to do with the state law.
And I think Josh Hinkle is a good resource for Legal Aid, because he's working hand in hand for that same action to happen.
Is he here in Worcester?
He is here in Worcester. He's from Worcester, but I'm not sure if he's here. But it's out of
an office?
Yes.
Okay, I'd be interested in seeing if I could help with that in somehow, you know, maybe help with writing a draft or something to see what changes can be made with this. All right, thank you.
Hello, my name's Matt Bono. I thank both of you so much for being courageous and sharing your story with us. Thank you for your perseverance to overcome the struggles and to continue to fight the battle. I'm very ignorant of the process and the organizations, and I'm very thankful for you guys putting this together and putting this on tonight to try and gain a little more knowledge. But I'd just like to know, maybe from a practical point of view, if something like where the Salvation Army has a severe weather center, if that facility was open for bathrooms and or showers and or just people to be able to clean up, to be able to go to job interviews or to be able to be presentable for work, is that something that could be discussed or could happen? And then the other thing I would like some real concrete, maybe we'll get into this, as to what we can actually do. Okay, you speak about money, you need money, okay. What are the budgets? Where are you at in the budgets for these programs that you're talking about and these projects? And who do we contact to work on fundraising? And do you have people already searching for grants and so forth? Beyond that, then, I kind of lost the last point, but just real concrete things of what we can actually do. I commend that question about, if we approach you on the street, what is it that you need? So you need gas for your car, is there somewhere we can create gas card program or something that, these people can get to work, the transportation issue. So, thank you.
Yeah, faith communities are doing some of that work. I have a discretionary mission fund, and so I buy gas cards for people and things of that nature. People have been very generous with clothing and furniture and all sorts of things. This is kind of our call to action, I guess, and that is, it would be great if you can stay in contact with us. Give us your contact information, and we'll let you know when things are happening in the community, or if there are ways that you can advocate for some of these programs. We have added a lot of things in the past. Salvation Army has something called the Living Room, which is open from 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And it's designed so people can wash their clothes there and also take a shower and get lunch. And so that's been helpful, for some folks to have a place to go. And what I always say is people need a place to be. And so often you can't be in some places if you're homeless. So, there's a pattern, there at the Salvation Army. They come to Trinity for breakfast. They go to the library for the day to stay there. There's a meal program somewhere else. So there's kind of a pattern to the day. We're not full for the meal programs. There are many gaps in it. And that's why we've started giving people power bars and hard-boiled eggs and things to take with them in their pack during the day so that they have something. Bottled water. We always have bottled water out. Those are just a few ideas, but I think the best thing is to, just be engaged in that. We are working on a mentoring program, something that I always thought we needed because we also didn't mention it, but about 10 years ago, we had dramatic cuts in mental health care. And we lost a lot of boots on the ground case managers who used to have a broad group of things that they could do for people. And when that happened, we had less case managers, especially from the counseling center. And so those people had to make their own doctor's appointments and get their own ride and those kinds of things that are fairly difficult to do. So we're trying to make up for that, I guess, to be a platform for the agencies to come and find people and for them to do that. But if you're interested in the mentoring program, that's also something that we are working on. And there are some great folks. Phil Kleinfelder, the former jail chaplain, he does Men of Honor, and they do the Pregnancy Care Center and a bunch of other things like that. And all those programs, if you get into any one of those programs, then you can also network and you're going to find the lifeline that you need when you need it. And that's my point, is that that we have to hit people in a crisis. The other thing is we really have to, and I use almost all my discretionary mission funding in keeping people from becoming homeless. And that means if they can't pay their rent, or if they've got a utility bill they can't pay, or a car repair that's a little bit too much for them, they don't have. And so that if we can prevent homelessness in the first place, we need to do that, because it's so hard once you become homeless to find another place. So I think, some of you are creating, a lot of creative people here, and if you have some kind of an idea, a way you could help in that manner, that would be great. You can let us know, and it would go out to a broad section of providers.
And thank you to all the panelists who are here and the speakers for sharing their time, their knowledge, and their experience with us. Thanks to all of you for being here and attending this evening. Please join me in determining how you are going to get involved in addressing housing and homelessness in Wayne County. We encourage everyone to visit the sponsoring tables as you leave tonight, in the back, and the information tables in the hallway, as well as remember the Reentry Coalition located in the parlor. Again, remember the index cards. If you're already on the mailing list like I am, we still want you to fill one of these out with your name and your contact information tonight. Put them in the big red boxes in the back that Barb is holding up there. So submit it even if you're already part of the group. And again, thank you to the First Presbyterian Church and the staff, particularly Tim Hall, the sponsoring organizations, and the many volunteers who've helped make this event possible. Check your handout again for the rebroadcast times that I mentioned at the onset of our evening. And thank you for joining us. Have a good evening. Thank you so much for being here.